Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming. So it's going to be Parsha of Kitavu. Actually, we have a bunch of very interesting things happening in this week's Parsha. And first of all, one of the things that we learn is going to be talking about unity, how united Jewish people are. And then also something that maybe we can learn between our relationships, whether it's between parents, children, brothers and sisters, husband and wife. But let's start with the first thing in the Parsha. The first thing in the Parsha talks about the mitzvah of Bikurim. Bikurim means the first ripe fruits. So somebody that owned the land of Israel, because land of Israel has a certain holiness, so there's a lot of mitzvot which is done with the produce of Israel, which doesn't apply with the produce that grows outside of Israel. So somebody that had a field and used to grow fruit trees, fruit trees. So then he had to bring the first from the first, and the rabbis say 1/60th of the fruits as a gift to God. That was actually a token of appreciation that he's not being ungrateful. He's actually grateful, he recognizes that the fruits that grew are a blessing of God. So if they belong to God, he had to bring it for God, 1/60th of it. Now you can't throw it to God and God take it with his hands. Those type of miracles don't happen. So we had to give it to an agent that God sends. Who are the agents of God? Everybody knows the Kohanim, the priests. They had no job, no business. They were working in the temple the whole time. So then you bring the fruits and you give it to the Kohen. And then besides that, when he brought the fruits as a token of appreciation, he had to read 5, 6 lines, actually expressing the kindness that God had to us from the time before we went down to Egypt up to the time that we came to the land of Israel. Now, when does this obligation start? So the Torah says, when you come to the land of Israel that God is going to give you, you're going to conquer it and you're going to settle in it. Then bring the fruits. That means the mitzvah starts only after conquering it and settling in it. How many years did it take to conquer and settle? So the Medrash says that it took 14 years. They had 7 years of wars with the nations, a very, very long war. We think Gaza war is very long. It is. 11 months into the war. When Joshua came into the land of Israel, Yeshua's time, it took 7 years until they got rid of the idol worshippers. And then it took another 7 years to divide the land. So basically, the first 14 years, even if somebody got his land and he started planting, he did not have to give the first fruit to God. After 14 years, when everybody settled, everybody got their piece of land, then they did this mitzvah of bringing the first fruits for God. So the question that happens, actually, one of the commentators asks, he says, as Rashi explains, why this mitzvah? Because I want to show that I'm grateful. I'm not ungrateful. I recognize it's a blessing of God. So imagine after the first couple years, I get my fruits. Fruits are growing. So if I want to be not grateful, I should bring the fruits right away. Why do I have to wait 14 years? For 14 years, I don't have to thank God because the rest of the Jews didn't get their land. You know what I'm saying? I get my fruits. I should be thankful to God. So one of the answers that they give is, why don't I have to show my thankfulness the first 14 years? So one of the answers that they give is, mitzvah bikurim was very much different than all the other mitzvah, the first fruit. Mitzvah bikurim had to be done with simcha, with happiness. The way they used to do it, not every individual brought the fruits. The entire city used to gather together. Then they went to the next city. Then they joined the people from the next city. Then they went to another city closer to Jerusalem. So you had thousands of Jews coming at the same time, bringing the fruits to the Beit HaMikdash. Not only that, they used to have actually bring a flute or something. They would actually play music while they were going. So when you have a lot of people coming, the happiness is a lot more. And then they used to do music too. Not only that, you had to bring it at a time of happiness. They brought it between Shavuot and Sukkot. Why? Because at that time, Jews are very happy. They saw the fruits drying up in the fields. After Sukkot, they took it into the storehouses. They didn't see the fruits. So we see that one of the main ingredients of this mitzvah is happiness. Had to be done at a time of happiness. They did it together. They played music. They had to be happy. Otherwise, the mitzvah wasn't able to be done. So here the Torah teaches us the unity amongst the Jewish people. The Jews were, at least were supposed to, they are. They're so united that when one Jew inherited his piece of land and he actually settled down, but he wasn't happy because his brother, another Jew, didn't have his land yet. So how could I be happy when I see my other, brother is homeless? I can't be happy. So because of that, he couldn't bring the bikurim. Because again, one of the main ingredients is happiness. If they felt if my brother doesn't have his land yet, he's not homeless. How could I be happy? I mean, you actually see this today. You have so many Jews. Our brothers now in the northern part of Israel, they still didn't go back to their homes. They're still homeless, honestly, because still, Hezbollah is attacking, or whatever. There's at least fear of attack. Even let's say if he's not attacking for a day or two, so they don't have their homes at all. So whether the Torah teaches us that the unity of the Jewish people is to such an extent that when somebody else has happiness, that's my happiness. When somebody actually is in pain, I have to feel the pain. I think I did speak about this one time before. You see, we find two types of unities that the Torah talks about. One is by the Egyptians and one is by the Jews. It says when the Egyptians were attacking the Jews before the ocean, so it says, Vayirdef Mitzrayim acharehem. He says it in singular. Egypt chased the Jews. Doesn't say the Egyptians, just says it in singular. So Rashi explains, it says, Belev echad keish echad. They all, why is it single? Because the Egyptians had one heart like one person. That means they had one goal, like one person. It says lev, the goal first. Then it says they were like one person. When the Jews came in front of Har Sinai, the mountain, so it says Vayichan, the Jew encamped, not the Jewish people. He says it's singular. So Rashi says Keish echad, like one person with one heart. So by the unity of the Jews, it says they were like one person with one heart. By the unity of the Egyptians, it says they had one heart like one person. Why the switch? So see what happens is here the Lubavitch Rebbe explains that there's two types of unities. Many times people are not really united, but they want to reach a goal. They want to create a country. I can't make a country by myself. I can't get to my goal by myself. So because we have the same goal, the goal unites us. But we're not really united. It's the goal that makes us united. What happens, let's say if we lose our desire for that goal, then the unity falls apart. That's one type of unity. There's another unity that, they really want. It's not that their goals makes them one. They really want. Because they really want, therefore they have the same goal. Is that clear? So it says really the Jewish people, the way we are internally united. It's not that our goals unites us. The Jews really, our souls are one. That's what Rashi, when it comes to the unity of the Jews, it says Keish echad belev echad. We are like one human being. And therefore we have the same goals. But when it comes to the Egyptians, it says no belev echad, because they had the same heart, because they had the same goal, they were keish echad, they were like one person. Is that clear, people? So this is the first part that actually we learn about Bikurim. Yeah, I guess you guys are lucky. On you two guys, huh? All right. Don't make any message, I'm watching. I'm just kidding. Anyways, you could trust them. They're very, very safe people. I promise you. Anyway, so the next thing that we're gonna actually, anybody has studied that? What's that book called? The 5 Languages of Love. I forgot everything in that book. I don't remember much. But one of the things that he writes actually is that there's different languages how you express your love, like buying gifts, act of service, and one is words of appreciation. So you think that this guy made it up himself. He was such a smart guy. He was a very smart man. But the truth is the Torah talks about it too. We're going to actually study a few things that it says in that book that actually the source is from the Torah. We're going to discuss Bikurim, the first fruits that, any person that had a field and he grew fruits, he had to bring the first fruits for God, as we said at the beginning of the class. Obviously, God doesn't take the fruits from us, so they brought it for the priest, for the Kohen, who was the agent of God. Now, why did they bring the fruits? We said at the beginning of the class to show their appreciation, that they're grateful that the fruit is from God. But that wasn't enough. The guy actually had to read the whole Megillah. I'm talking about 7, 8 lines. And he said, you know what, God? I'm bringing the fruits to show that I'm grateful. And then he goes and talks about all the kindnesses that God did for us. Jacob, our father, was running away from Lavan. He wanted to kill us, and then other people hurt us. We ended up in Egypt. In Egypt, they enslaved us. We screamed to God, we prayed to God. God took us out of Egypt. He brought us to the land of Israel. We have our land, we have the fruits. I'm bringing the fruits to you. Why do you have to have this declaration? Why do you have to declare? If the purpose is the being grateful that God gave us the fruits, just bring the fruits and give it to the Kohen. Why this declaration? And actually, he said it very loud. But you become more grateful when you say the declaration. Why can't it just be that you give the fruits? So, actually, one of the things that, one of the commentators explained, let me just tell you a story. Sometimes I give a gift, but I wish I didn't have to give the gift. It's just an external act. I don't really want to give the gift to you. Let's say somebody needs a promotion in his office, right? So he really hates his boss, so doesn't care about his boss. But because he needs to get the promotion, he has to buy him a gift. So he's not really giving the gift from the bottom of his heart. He's just giving it because he has to. But somebody that you actually love, you don't just throw the gift. You guys get married one day, Bezat Hashem, right? To the right person, right? So then, of course, your, what do you call it? The birthday comes from your wife, or anniversary comes, or Jewish love date. No, Jewish love day. You know what Jewish love day is? Tuva, right. What's that non-Jewish one? Valentine's Day? No Valentine's Day. 15th day of God. So imagine you go buy a gift, if flowers for your wife, you don't just give the flowers. You have to write the whole note. It's from your dear husband or whatever. I love you so much. You're such a blessing for me. Now, which one does your wife do you think loves more? We're gonna ask the girls. They're not married yet, but they're very smart. They know what's gonna happen later. Do you love the flowers more or those statements? The little notes that your husband writes for you. Honest to God. Tough question. Don't be embarrassed. Even if you give the wrong answer, you're not going to judge you. Which one do you appreciate more?
The flowers.
The flowers? Okay. So I would explain that because you're not married yet.
Maybe.
There was actually one of my friends, that the wife had a birthday and the kids bought gifts. Each one bought some gifts for the wife. So the wife looked at the gifts one time, but he actually read the notes 5-6 times. Says the gift is nice, but the notes I love because it shows that you really care. The notes are really more meaningful. You don't say, oh, when the flower comes. When you see the notes, how much your husband, expresses the love, or vice versa. When the wife, expresses the love for the husband, that really touches you a lot more. So here, when the guy brought the fruits, he could have left the fruits and gone. But you really don't know if he really wants to give the fruits to God. Maybe he says, you know what, I wish I didn't have to travel all the way from southern part of Israel into Yerushalayim. Who needs it? I wish I have just give it to the neighbor and eat. I don't want to travel here. So really don't know if he loves to give it to God or not. But when he reads the declaration and he says, God, I want to really thank you for all the, whatever, the kindnesses that you did. So that shows that he really appreciates the goodness that God gave him. So when you buy flowers for your wife, don't just buy flowers.
What is it cost?
You got to have those notes. You could make it very romantic. You go to 1-800-Flowers. They give you 15% discount. If you have American Express, but your wife doesn't have to know that. Then you're a good Persian. It works, right? And then actually they give you up to 500 words to write on the note. That's plenty, right? Okay. Maybe you could ask for an extension. Get more. But this is one of the things, that this guy, the doctor, writes in his book, 5 languages of love, and one of, words of appreciation. You see it in the Torah. When this guy brought the fruits, he actually did say something verbally too. One of other languages of love, because soon the holidays are coming. So although you don't have to do it, but remind your fathers when they become better husbands. Right? One of the things that the guy writes in the book is gifts. I don't know how much men love gifts. I only could know from myself. I'm not into gifts at all. I'm saying maybe I like other stuff. But definitely women, they love gifts. And it's actually validated by God in the Torah. Let's see how it is. The Torah says when the holidays come, you have to be happy during the holidays. How in the world do you become happy? What am I supposed to do to be happy? There's many things that you can do. One of them actually is when the family is together, that brings happiness. But the Gemara says one of the ways for men is that you make for them steaks and you bring them wine. You like steaks? I guess so, of course, yeah. In Persian, it's sharab or kebab. So you know what kebab means? Kebab is meat, and then sharab is wine. That's what men like. But right away, the Gemara asks, that's holidays. 3 holidays that we got. Passover, Shavuot, and now Be'ezrat Hashem, soon Sukkot is coming. But the Gemara asks a question. Ladies are not steak eaters. At least they were not in times of the Gemara. They're for sure not wine drinkers. Although today we see it by the wedding, sometimes girls get drunk too. Please do not get drunk in front of boys. It's going to cost you your reputation at the end. I know that. I'm just kidding. No, the reason why I said that because one time we had a Shabbaton and there was a girl that got really, really drunk. And boys were making fun of us. I said, listen, tomorrow you want to go on a date. And these guys that you're having fun with, you drinking, they're going to come and say something negative about you. It's going to hurt your reputation. Don't do it in front of boys. So she never did it again. And she got married. But anyways, ladies are not wine drinkers. You usually find boys getting drunk, not girls, hopefully. So how do they become happy on the holidays? So you know what the Torah says? It's an obligation of the husband, but again, based on their income. Please don't abuse it. Based on their income, to buy dresses and jewelry for their wives. Now hold on 1 second. We talk about 3 holidays: Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. When Passover comes, 7 weeks later is Shavuot, right? Shavuot was just like a couple of months ago. 3 months later or 4 months later is Sukkot. Men are lucky. From Sukkot all the way to Passover, you have 6 to 7 months, or 5 to 6 months. So you have some time to get your money back again, to be able to buy more gifts. But honestly, I mean, what is it? I just bought you a dress. A few weeks later, you want another dress? This is exactly what the Torah says. One of the things that ladies like is buying gifts. But again, based on your income. If your income is $500, you could do, $100 more. But please don't buy something for $5,000. That's going to cause fights. So again, a lot of things that you find in these books, honestly, they are not just, in the other books, they're very smart people, they write in psychological books, but actually it's a mitzvah from the Torah too. This was the second thing that I wanted to study with you. And if you have any questions, please ask. We're going to go to the third thing from this week's Parsha, God willing. Any questions? Go ahead. You want to buy gifts? No problem. You want to buy gifts? So save money. Weddings cost money, huh? Not a girl. You need a potential wife. Yeah. I'm against girlfriend, boyfriend. Oh, yeah? Potential wife, potential husband. That's it. You're safer that way, I promise you. Less trouble, less hangovers, less emotional volcanoes. You got to be smart. Anyways, one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you people is actually in this week's portion, it talks about, you guys could come on this side. I don't have laser in my eyes. Thank you. Are you afraid of me? I don't bite. Not yet. One of the things that this portion talks about actually might be a little bit of a repetition, but it's good to know. The Torah there's 11 curses in this week's parasha. One of the curses are somebody that somebody that hits or beats his friend in secret. Now it seems to be very funny. I only get cursed if I beat you up in secret in a cellar. What if I beat you up in the middle of the street? I don't get cursed. It really doesn't make any sense. So because of that, the rabbis say we're not talking about physical beating. We're talking about a verbal beating, that somebody goes and slanders behind your back. Usually I'm afraid to say something bad about you in front of you. So where do I do it? Baseter, hiddenly. I'm going to seek when you run around, I start saying trash about some other person. So the Torah, basically, Lashon Hara, gossip. So here the Torah says, Arur, cursed is the person that will actually goes around and says trash, bad about somebody else. Now, these are scary things. If somebody, let's say, God forbid, doesn't keep Shabbat, it doesn't say that he's cursed. If somebody doesn't keep kosher, as important as it is, it doesn't say there's a curse upon a person that does not eat kosher. When it comes to slander behind somebody's back, the Torah actually puts the word of Arur, he should be cursed. For very, very few sins the Torah puts it. One of them is idol worship, for example. One of them is, God forbid, adultery. Fine. These are things that we understand. But if I say something bad about you, is it that bad that there's a curse the Torah tells us that there is? Anyways, we're just going to review this. You have learned it many times before, but I think the reviewing of it is very, very important. The Chafetz Chaim writes down that one of the main reasons why the Jews are suffering is in exile is only because of the sin of gossiping, Lashon Hara. Not because they're getting intermarried, even though it's bad, not because they're not keeping Shabbat, not because they're not keeping kosher. The main reason why we are suffering is just because of the hatred and the slandering that's happening. And first of all, let's prove that before we give the logic. Where is the proof to that? You got to prove it from the Talmud, from the Gemara. So there's two places to prove it from. Proof number one is a story in the Talmud. The Talmud says the Jews in times of the Second Temple, they were all religious. They kept the Torah, they kept Shabbat, they studied Torah. They were religious people. In times of the First Temple, they did terrible sins. So we understand the temple, the first one got destroyed. They did adultery, idolatry, bloodshed. You understand that. But in the Second Temple, they were all religious. Why didn't the religion save them from the tragedies? So the Gemara says because they had baseless hatred to each other. The Chafetz Chaim adds just the hatred in the heart wouldn't cause it. They actually gossiped behind each other's back. So from here, the Gemara says we see that gossiping is equal to all the other major sins. When I really ruin somebody's life by saying something bad about him, so that's equal to all the other major sins. The Gemara says Lashon Hara is even worse than adultery. Because in the First Temple, they used to do adultery, but they went to exile only for 70 years. After 70 years of the Babylonian exile, we went back to Israel, and we rebuilt the Second Temple. But after, the Lashon Hara that started, it's already over 1956 years that we are in exile. So the Gemara says this proves that Lashon Hara is worse. So that's proof number one that Chafetz Chaim brings, that no matter how religious we are, if really there's so much fragmentation, so much division amongst the Jews, that they say bad about each other, the religion that we keep doesn't save us from punishments. It doesn't do much. I'm not telling you become non-religious because we speak Lashon Hara. God forbid. Stay religious, stop speaking Lashon Hara. And I'm saying don't say because when I'm talking Lashon Hara, so forget it. Don't keep anything. The second proof that the Chafetz Chaim brings is actually a proof from the Torah itself. Guys, Moshe Rabbeinu had a problem. Let's go through the verses of the Torah. He comes one day and he sees there is an Egyptian beating of a Jew. What does Moshe do when he sees the Egyptian is beating of the Jew? He kills the Egyptian, correct? Next day he sees two Jews are fighting. So he tells Jew number one, why, you wicked one, why are you hitting your friend? So the guy says, what do you want to do? You want to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? And they threaten Moshe, I'm going to tell Pharaoh. I'm going to tell him that you are the one that killed the Egyptian. That's how Pharaoh found out. His own brothers, told Pharaoh. So when that happens, it says Moshe was afraid. And he said, the thing is known. Simply, he was afraid for his life. Now the fact that he killed the Egyptian is going to be known because they're going to tell Pharaoh. The rabbis don't like this explanation because Moshe did not run away from Egypt. If he was afraid of his life, he should have ran away. He stayed until Pharaoh caught him. And they gave him to the hands of the executioner, and through a miracle, he ran away. The Medrash says that his neck turned into marble, and when they brought the, the sword on his neck, he bounced back, and he killed the executioner. So he was able to run away. If he was worried about his life, why didn't he run away right away? So the rabbis know he wasn't afraid of his life. When he says he was afraid that the Jews will never get saved again. They deserve to be in Egypt. Why? And he said, he's known to me now why. So the Medrash explains, Moshe had a question. What did the Jews do worse than any other nation that have to suffer? Adultery, other nations do worse. Understand? Idolatry, other nations do worse. Theft, other nations do worse. What did these poor Jews do? So then he says, you know what, now understand. Because they say Lashon Hara, they actually go say trash, bad about each other. So that's what they deserve. There's another question that comes up. Don't other nations also say trash about each other? So why are the Jews worse? But we already gave the answer at the beginning of the class. The unity amongst the Jews is a lot different than others. Other nations, their goals makes them united. Jews are internally connected. You don't need faith for that. Because when Jews are in trouble in Israel, who helps them amongst the Jews? Every single one. I don't care, they live in America, Brazil, South Africa. When Arabs are killing each other, which Arab country comes to help them? Probably none. I'm not kidding. The unity amongst the Jews is internal. So therefore, when you say Lashon Hara and you divide them, the sin is a lot worse. So what did Moshe say? Now I know why the Jews deserve to suffer, because they speak Lashon Hara. Just like the Gemara says, although they were religious, but because they spoke Lashon Hara, they deserve to be in exile. So that's why we suffer. Anyways, why is Lashon Hara so bad, people? Somebody one time was in Santa Monica College, says, Rabbi, it's not even in the 10 Commandments. Don't speak Lashon Hara. So why is it really that detrimental? So we're going to go through the three answers that are given. The Chafetz Chaim gives a couple answers. Reason number one, I'm starting to forget. Oh, he says because the way God judges us, it's in like democracy. We don't get punished for the sins right away. There has to be a judgment. You have to have a prosecutor, and that happens on Rosh Hashanah. The angels come to protect us. The evil angels come to accuse us. Clear, you don't get punished right away. There has to be a court case, heavenly court case. Now, when the Jews don't gossip behind each other's back, we don't say bad about each other. So then God says, you know what? Jews don't say bad about each other. I don't want to hear the Satan. I don't want to hear the Satan saying bad about Jews. So basically, if we do anything wrong between ourselves and God, as long as Jews get along, basically goes unpunished. The moment I accuse another Jew, or I'm willing to listen to an accusation of another Jew, then the mouth of the Satan opens up. He could actually punish us for everything. That's why other sins don't do that. If I do any other sin, I'm not accusing you. So therefore, the mouth of Satan is closed. Reason number two, Chafetz Chaim writes down, is because really when trouble is supposed to happen, prayer is supposed to hold it back. We do believe in prayer. Somebody gets sick, you give the name, to the synagogue to pray for him. But every day we do pray. If prayer is nonsense, why are you wasting your time? Obviously, we believe that prayers work, but that's as long as our mouth is not contaminated. Then the prayers go to God. If I actually use bad words, or if I gossip, so then my power of speech is contaminated. Then the prayers don't go to God. Right? If somebody does other things, that's not give the power of speech. So the prayers go up. This is one, major questions that I have. I never got the answer. When somebody wants to become the leader of the community to pray, they ask him, does he keep Shabbat? Does he keep this? Does he keep that? They never ask, does he speak Lashon Hara or not? I think if they speak Lashon Hara, it's the worst. They shouldn't be the leader for prayers. I've never seen it being brought down. I really don't know why. That's one of the questions that stayed with me all these years. The third reason why gossiping is very bad, because every sin, it's not repeated that many times. If somebody doesn't keep kosher, how many times a day does he eat non-kosher food? We only eat 3 times a day, sometimes 5 times. But honestly, all the foods are kosher. Almost every dairy is kosher. The only thing that's non-kosher really is if you go to a non-kosher restaurant, they eat shrimp, whatever, I don't know, meat. But basically, almost everything is kosher. And even if it's not, 3 times a day maximum, how many times does a person not keep Shabbat? Once a week? If somebody doesn't fast on Yom Kippur, how many times does it desecrate Yom Kippur? Only those 25 hours? Which not really, because 8 hours is sleeping. So out of the 25 hours of Yom Kippur, maybe it's desecrating a few hours, 10, 15 hours. But when it comes to gossiping, 10, 15 times a day could happen. Right? Especially when we sit and talk. So that it's a big sin and it happens many, many times. So this is one of the things that we learned from this week's parasha. We got to actually train our mouths to say only good about somebody else. Before I say something bad, I have to think, is this really why God created my tongue? That I should say something bad about somebody else? And we should always remember, actually, this is one of the sins that the Torah says, arur, that a person is cursed for actually saying something bad about somebody else. I know these things has a lot of questions. If you guys have any questions, Please do ask about Lashon Hara. If I don't have the answer, I tell I don't have the answer. No questions? What? Is it that simple? One question. Next time I'm going to ask you questions. So I'm going to make sure you listen. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to embarrass you. Because going to the last part, and then you're going to go to the restaurant, Bezrat Hashem. You know, one of the things that have in this week's parasha is also 98 other curses if the Jews don't keep the mitzvot. Now, honestly, nothing bad comes from God. So there must be that even if these curses do happen, eventually they're for the good. Let's go through two stories of the Gemara that we see whatever God does is for the good. One is with a man called Rabbi Akiva, and the other one was with another man. His name was Nachum Ish Gamzu. Story of Rabbi Akiva, very famous story. Whenever he traveled, he used to take his donkey with him. His donkey was from Germany, made by Mercedes. Right? And he had also his candle, and he had his rooster. He took his donkey to carry his books or whatever his stuff. The candle was to study Torah at night, and the rooster was to wake him up early, whatever, midnight or early in the morning. So one time he came to a city to go to sleep. He got there too late. He got there after sunset. All the doors were closed. He was knocking and knocking, begging them to open the door. They said too late. So he had to go to sleep in the forest. He didn't understand why. Not only that, a few minutes later, a lion comes and kills his donkey. Then a wild cat comes and he kills his rooster. And then a wind blows and that's it. No candle. It sounds like one of those, they say when it rains, it pours. It's like everything bad happened to him. But he said one thing, whatever God does is for the good. It says, Kol ma David Rachmana letav. Next morning when he wakes up, he goes to the city, he sees that the doors of the city were broken. Robbers came, they broke the doors, they killed many people, they took many people as, captives. They used to sell, slaves in those days. So Rabbi Akiva said, now I understand everything. If I would have gotten to the city on time and slept there, either I would have been killed or taken as captive. If the donkey was alive and would make noise, they would say, hey, somebody must be close by. Let's go investigate who's in the forest, close to the city. If the rooster would make noise, they would find out I'm in the forest too. And if the candle was lit, they would see a candle and they would find me. So all these things that happened was actually for the good. So this is one of the famous stories that the Talmud brings, that even if things happens in our lives, that they are not things that we anticipated, it's actually painful things, but eventually it's for the good. There's actually another interesting story with a man that was one generation before Rabbi Akiva. His name was Rab Nachum Ish Gamzu. The reason why they called him Gamzu, by the way, Persians have a last name Gamzu. Ever heard that? Because he used to say Gamzu, this too, Letova, is for the good. That was a statement that he had. This is for the good. So some people in Shiraz, they have the last name Gamzu Letova, but they made it short, Gamzu. Not kidding. They chose like a very, very holy last name. Anyways, the story with him was that one time the Roman Empire put a lot of bad decrees against the Jews. So they said, you know what? We got to send a righteous person to go see the emperor and ask him for forgiveness. So they said, who should we choose? They make a lottery. Nachum. This man, Ish Gamzu, was chosen. Big tzaddik, big righteous man. They give him a whole chest full of diamonds or whatever, jewelry, and say, give it to the emperor and ask him to forgive the Jews. On the way there, he had to go to sleep in a motel. But he was really watching his chest that he had. So the hotel keepers realized there's something wrong, there's something valuable in here. When he was sleeping, they steal everything and they fill it up with dust. Now there's two versions in the Gemara, if you realized or not. But we're going to go into the version that he didn't realize. So he comes to the emperor and he says, here, emperor, I want to ask you, please forgive the Jews, and this is your gift. Take it. So he opens it up, there's dust in there. It says, what, Jews are making fun of me? Throw him in jail till I'm going to kill him. So what happens is the Gemara says, Elijah the prophet comes down in the shape of a soldier. And he tells the emperor, you could say whatever you want about the Jews, but they're not stupid. Correct? They're smart people. Why do you think he will bring you dust? Probably this is the dust of Abraham Avinu, Abraham their father, when he went to war against the four kings. It says that he took some dust and he threw it at them and it turned into spears. Probably this is what it is. And at that time, the Romans had a war against another country that they were not winning. So he says, let's try it. So he goes and he tries to use this dust and actually turns into spears and arrows and he wins. That's a story that the Gemara says. That was a miracle that happened for Nachum Ish Gamzu. So then the emperor forgives whatever all the decrees that he made against the Jews, and actually sends this Nachum Ish Gamzu back with a lot of jewelry. So that's why he said Gamzu Letova. This is for the good too. What's the difference of the two stories? You see, in the first story, Rabbi Akiva had pain. He lost. He lost his donkey. He lost his rooster. He couldn't study Torah at night. It was painful. But nevertheless, all these painful things was for a good thing, for his life to get saved. It's worth it to lose your property if your life gets saved. Correct? Of course. Unless you're Persian. Then you love your money more than your life. They said there was one time a Persian guy, he had a watch on his hands. What's that expensive watch? I forgot the name.
Are you telling the story of like what's happened on the day?
It never happened. Oh, what is that? What's that watch? Thousands of dollars. No, it's a very famous one. I forgot. Rolex, yeah, Rolex. It shows I don't have one. That's why I don't know the name. So it says one time a car hits him and his hand gets cut off. So it says, oh my gosh, I lost my Rolex. He was worried about his Rolex, not his hand. But it's only a joke. It's not true. Persians love their lives more than their money, or at least equal, not more. Anyways, again, it's really worth it to lose the money. Again, the person is happy as long as his life gets, even though it's painful, as long as he saves his life. In case of Nachum Ish Gamzu, nothing bad happened. If he would have given the jewelry to the king, you think he would have forgiven that? He's not missing any jewelry. The Roman Empire had so much, gold and jewelry. He needed the dust to turn into a spear. So actually, it was for the good that he got exchanged. So one of the lessons that we learn is hopefully nothing bad will happen. But the fact, if we see sometimes things happen that we don't like, if we truly believe that there's something good in there, very soon we'll see the good. Again, I'm not God. I don't know. I still don't understand why October 7th had to happen. None of us understand, why World War II had to happen. And I don't want to know why it happened, because then I'm going to justify what happened. But again, deep down, we have to know, again, God is very smart, definitely smarter than us. And at least in our individual lives, when something unwanted happens, there's something good in there. Sometimes, like Rabbi Akiva, we see the good the next day, couple months later, maybe. Sometimes you don't even figure it out why it had to happen. But definitely everything that happens from God eventually is for the good. I'm going to end up with one story, and then we go to the restaurant. The student of the Baal Shem Tov, his name was Rabbi Dovber. When he was alive, no tragedy happened to the Jews in the area that he lived. As soon as he died, pogroms started. They were attacking the Jews and killing them. So the students of Rabbi Dovber couldn't figure it out. So they fasted, they prayed. They asked, that maybe the Rebbe, the teacher should come to the dreams and tell them. So he came to dream of one of his students. And he said the reason why nothing bad was happening is because I used to see that trouble is coming. Because I was in a physical body, I saw it as trouble. So I prayed for it to go away. But now that I passed away, I'm next to God. I see from the vision of God, and I see the ultimate good. So how can I pray for the ultimate good not to happen? But you guys that are human beings and you're not in that level, pray for the bad not to happen. So obviously this story proves to, at least explains to us that things that do happen from heaven, there's eventually something good in there. And Be'ezrat Hashem,